Daniel Smith, born October 7, 1977, is an American journalist and author of the 2012 memoir Monkey Mind, a memoir of anxiety. He has written articles and essays for the New York Times Magazine, The Atlantic, Slate, N+1, Harper's Magazine, New York, and others. Smith was born and raised in Plainview, New York. He attended Brandeis University, where he studied English and Russian literature. He was a staff editor for The Atlantic, where he published his first major article in 2001. The article, Shock and Disbelief, was about electroshock therapy and would become the center of a libel suit against Smith and the magazine. It later appeared in the 2002 collection, The Best American Science and Nature Writing. His first book, 2007's Muses, Madmen, and Prophets, Hearing Voices and the Borders of Sanity, explores the history and science of hearing voices. According to the National Institute of Mental Health, more than 40 million Americans suffer from anxiety each year. Its symptoms are countless, and Smith seems to have suffered them all. Not only those familiar to many of us, fearfulness, sweating, indigestion, insomnia, self-consciousness, but also dizziness, numbness, blanching, blushing, nail-biting, brain fog, depersonalization, panic attacks, and more. The causes of this common disorder are nearly as numerous as its symptoms, but not so easy to pin down, although Smith's unrelenting self-examination makes a good start. Monkey Mind, a memoir of anxiety, is a well-written treasure trove of insights about the causes and development of anxiety straight from one man's lifetime experience of it. Smith takes anxiety seriously, but not himself. His ultra self-awareness makes this book uniquely perspective, but he also turns his critical powers on himself. Monkey Mind is both dark and funny. For example, Smith admits to solving the problem of profuse sweating by affixing maxi pads to the insides of his dress shirts. Smith is typically indecisive about the origins of his anxiety. His compulsive self-analysis swings monkey-like from one explanatory branch to another. He blames his genetics, his Jewishness, his mother's work as a psychotherapist, but he also cites a near-drowning experience as a toddler that led to several childhood phobias. Without untangling this complex ideology, Smith does identify an event in his adolescence as a trigger to his first extended period of disabling anxiety. In the nightmarish, sordid episode that begins the book, Smith is the victim of seduction, if not rape, by a pair of older women. He relates the dismal experience with a comic gusto that sets the tone for the memoir. Anxiety can be triggered by many things. For Smith, it is partly genetic and partly situation-based. His mother suffered from overwhelming anxiety. Her only way out was to delve into it more by becoming a psychotherapist who specialized in anxiety. Smith's mother was, quote, scared of driving, public speaking, parties, open spaces, and men. She suffered from acid indigestion, heart palpitations, and tremors. She had panic attacks at school. She also had panic attacks at home, at the grocery store, at the laundromat, at the bank, in the shower, and in bed. Smith traces his anxiety to, quote, losing my virginity. Seduced at age 16 by an adult lesbian, the act consummated in the presence of another after a tawdry party. Coming home a mess, he confesses all to his mother, who declares, quote, you were statutory raped. The anxiety doesn't let up for at least a decade and a half. He describes how his adolescent anxiety amplified when he left his Long Island home for Brandeis University. Smith discusses how freedom is linked to anxiety, especially for college students. Smith craved direction, but then resented being led by others. This resentment actually heightened the anxiety and created a vicious cycle of self-loathing. Smith discusses his own experiences of anxiety, but it's not all about him. In fact, much of the book reads like a cultural history of anxiety. He discusses many intellectuals and writers who suffered from anxiety, like Paul McCartney and Kafka, and credits the novelist Philip Roth with providing the most clarity on the subject. Painful experiences are described with humor, and complex ideas are made accessible. Even though Smith claims that this, quote, is no recovery memoir, he offers hope for recovery. After floundering around in years of talk therapy, he finds cognitive therapy, mindfully changing thoughts and responses, the best match for the anxious mind.